Listen closely, my friends. There is a moment every morning that almost nobody notices. A moment so small, so brief, that it disappears before most people even realize it was there. It happens in the first few seconds after your eyes open, before the notifications, before the memories, before the worries, before the world starts telling you who you are supposed to be. And in that moment, your entire life hangs in the balance. Because every day, without realizing it, millions of people lose the war before they ever leave their bed. Not at noon, not in the evening, not when something goes wrong. They lose it in the first 60 seconds. The alarm rings. A hand reaches for the phone. A mind reaches for yesterday's problems. A feeling takes command. And just like that, another day is surrendered, not to reality, not to fate, but to habit. The frightening part is that most people never even notice it happening. They think their life is being shaped by major decisions: the career, the relationship, the opportunities, the luck. But history tells a different story. History shows us that empires were built by men who mastered mornings. Men who understood that before you can command a nation, a business, a family, or a future, you must first learn to command the mind that wakes up with you every day. Marcus Aurelius carried the weight of an empire on his shoulders and still had to wage war against his own thoughts at dawn. Epictetus began life as a slave, yet became freer than men who owned entire cities. Seneca possessed wealth beyond imagination, yet trained himself to live without comfort whenever he chose. These men were not born disciplined. They were not born fearless. They were not born different. They simply discovered something that most people spend their entire lives missing. The quality of your life is decided long before the world gets access to you. And that decision happens in the morning. Right now, somewhere in the world, a man is waking up in a hospital bed. Someone else is waking up with nothing in his bank account. Someone is waking up after a devastating loss. Someone is waking up in circumstances most people would call impossible, and yet some of those people will still take command of their mind before the sun rises. While others, living comfortable lives with every advantage imaginable, will hand their peace away to a notification before their feet even touch the floor. That is why this video matters. Because this is not motivation. Motivation disappears. This is not productivity. Productivity can be faked. And this is not another collection of quotes designed to make you feel inspired for 10 minutes before returning to the same habits. This is something far more dangerous. This is a blueprint for mental command. 8 Stoic rules. 8 ancient laws. 8 disciplines that survived emperors, wars, collapses, betrayals, shipwrecks, prisons, poverty, and the rise and fall of entire civilizations. Not because they sounded good, because they worked. And if you apply even one of them, tomorrow morning will not belong to the same version of you that woke up today. So, pay attention. Because one of these rules is going to make you uncomfortable. One of these rules is going to expose a weakness you have been protecting for years. And one of these rules might completely change the direction of your life. The question is not whether these principles work. They have already survived 2,000 years of proof. The question is whether you are willing to do what almost nobody else will. Because the first battle of every day is about to begin, and the people who win that battle rarely lose the war. Let's begin. Rule number 1. You conquer the body before you negotiate with the mind. Every morning a conversation takes place inside your head that determines the direction of your entire day. The problem is that most people never realize they are having it. The alarm sounds, and before their feet touch the floor, the mind begins presenting arguments. 5 more minutes. Start tomorrow. You're tired. You deserve a break. It sounds harmless, but that quiet negotiation has destroyed more potential than failure ever could. Because every time comfort wins the first battle of the day, it grows stronger, and every time discipline loses, it becomes harder to hear. Marcus Aurelius understood this battle well. He was the most powerful man on earth, yet some mornings he struggled with the same resistance you feel when the alarm goes off. In his private journal, he wrote a reminder to himself that has survived for nearly 2,000 years. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, "I am rising to do the work of a human being." Think about that for a moment. An emperor commanding armies still needed to command himself first, because he understood a truth that most people spend their lives avoiding. If you cannot rule your own body, you cannot rule anything else. The modern world teaches people to trust their feelings before taking action. The Stoics taught the opposite. They knew that feelings are often late to the party. Confidence comes after action. Motivation comes after movement. Energy comes after momentum. Yet millions of people remain trapped because they are waiting to feel ready before they begin. They are waiting for a mood that never arrives. They are waiting for permission that was never required. And while they wait, their potential quietly slips away one morning at a time. Seneca deliberately placed himself in uncomfortable situations, even though he possessed extraordinary wealth. He slept on hard surfaces, ate simple food, chose discomfort when comfort was available, not because he enjoyed suffering, but because he refused to become dependent on ease. He knew that a person controlled by comfort is not free. The moment discomfort appears, they retreat. The moment life becomes difficult, they surrender. The moment discipline is required, they negotiate. And negotiation is where greatness goes to die. Imagine two people waking up tomorrow morning. The first person listens to every excuse their mind provides. They delay, they hesitate, they negotiate. The second person stands up immediately. No debate, no discussion, no vote, just action. By the end of a year, the difference between those two people will be almost unrecognizable. Not because one possessed more talent, not because one got lucky, but because one trained himself to move before the excuses finished speaking. That is the secret most people never discover. The goal is not to silence the voice of resistance. The voice may never disappear completely. The goal is to become the kind of person who acts before that voice gains control. The body moves first. The decision is made first. The action comes first. And eventually the mind learns something powerful. It learns that excuses no longer have authority here. So tomorrow morning, when the alarm cuts through the silence and the old excuses begin their familiar performance, remember this: you are not fighting your bed. You are not fighting fatigue. You are fighting for command. Because the first victory of the day is never over your circumstances. It is over yourself. And the people who learn to win that battle consistently become dangerous in ways the average person can barely imagine. Conquer the body before you negotiate with the mind. Win the first 60 seconds, and you will be shocked by how many battles become easier for the rest of the day. Rule number 2. You fast from noise before you feed the mind anything. Before ancient cities were attacked, their enemies rarely stormed the strongest gate first. They searched for the unguarded entrance, the weak point, the opening nobody was paying attention to. Your mind works exactly the same way. Every morning, before your focus is fully awake, before your judgment is fully active, before your purpose has taken its place at the center of your attention, the world comes looking for an entrance. And most people open the gate willingly. The first thing they touch is a screen. The first thing they consume is noise, a message, a notification, a headline, somebody else's opinion, somebody else's success, somebody else's crisis. Before they have spent even 60 seconds listening to their own thoughts, they have already handed control of their emotional state to strangers. And the dangerous part is that it feels normal, it feels harmless. Yet some of the most important battles of the day are being lost in those first few moments. Musonius Rufus, the teacher of Epictetus, believed that whatever enters the mind repeatedly eventually shapes the character. The Stoics understood something modern society is only beginning to rediscover. Attention is not a small thing. Attention is your life. Whatever receives your attention receives your energy. Whatever receives your energy begins shaping your future, which means the first thing you allow into your mind each morning matters far more than most people realize. Imagine waking up and immediately inviting 100 strangers into your bedroom. One starts shouting bad news. Another starts comparing your life to someone else's. Another demands your attention. Another tells you what you should fear. Another tells you what you should want. It sounds absurd. Yet this is exactly what happens every morning when people allow the world to enter their minds before they have taken command of them. They begin the day overwhelmed, not because life is overwhelming, but because they surrendered their focus before deciding where it should go. The strongest minds operate differently. They protect the first hour of the day like a fortress protects its walls during a siege. They understand that the morning mind is soft clay. Whatever touches it first leaves the deepest impression. If chaos arrives first, chaos grows. If distraction arrives first, distraction grows. If comparison arrives first, insecurity grows. But if silence arrives first, clarity grows. If purpose arrives first, discipline grows. If intention arrives first, control grows. Think about how many people spend their lives reacting to notifications, reacting to messages, reacting to opinions, reacting to circumstances. They never stop long enough to decide what deserves their attention because they are too busy responding to everything demanding it. By noon they are mentally exhausted, not because they worked hard, because they allowed hundreds of unnecessary things to occupy space inside their mind. A crowded mind cannot produce a focused life. The Stoics believed that not every thought deserves to be entertained. Not every impression deserves to be accepted. Not everything asking for your attention deserves access to your inner world. This is a form of discipline that has become rare in modern times. People guard their money, they guard their possessions, they guard their reputation, yet they leave their attention completely unprotected, even though attention is infinitely more valuable than all three. Tomorrow morning, before you touch your phone, before you open a message, before you allow the world to speak, sit in silence for a moment. Let your own thoughts arrive first. Let your own purpose speak first. Let your own values take their place before the noise begins competing for your attention. Because once the world gets inside your head, reclaiming control becomes far more difficult. The quality of your focus determines the quality of your life, and the people who master their attention become powerful in a way most people never understand. They stop reacting, they stop drifting, they stop living according to somebody else's priorities. They become deliberate, intentional, unshakable. Guard the gate. Because whatever enters your mind first thing in the morning often controls far more of your day than you think. Rule number 3. You rehearse your death so you can actually live. Most people live as if they have an unlimited number of mornings left. They talk about their goals as if time is guaranteed. They postpone difficult decisions. They delay important conversations. They tell themselves they will start next week, next month, next year. And without realizing it, they build their entire life around an assumption that has never been promised to a single human being. The assumption that there will always be another morning. The Stoics saw this illusion for what it was, and that is why they practiced one of the most powerful mental exercises ever created. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly that life is temporary, not because he was obsessed with death, but because he understood something most people spend their lives avoiding. The person who remembers death learns how to value life. Every sunrise becomes more meaningful. Every opportunity becomes more important. Every hour becomes more precious. When you stop assuming that time is infinite, you stop wasting it on things that do not matter. Suddenly, the excuses that felt convincing yesterday begin to look ridiculous. Think about it carefully. One day, there will be a morning when you have already used your last tomorrow. One day, the plans you keep postponing will no longer have time waiting for them. One day, all the opportunities you thought would always be available will disappear forever. Most people know this intellectually. Very few people allow themselves to feel the reality of it. They push the thought away because it feels uncomfortable. Yet the discomfort contains a truth powerful enough to transform an entire life. Imagine waking up tomorrow with absolute certainty that this was your final year alive, not your final day, not your final hour, just your final year. How many things would immediately lose their importance? How many pointless arguments would suddenly seem worthless? How many fears would stop controlling you? How many dreams would finally become urgent? The reason this question is so powerful is because it exposes the gap between the life you are living and the life you know you should be living. The Stoics called this practice memento mori. Remember that you will die. 4 simple words, yet hidden inside them is a force capable of destroying procrastination, hesitation, and fear. Because fear thrives on the illusion of endless time. We delay action because we assume another opportunity will come. We postpone growth because we assume we can always start later. But when you remember that time is limited, later becomes a dangerous word. Later becomes a trap. Later becomes the thief of entire lives. Look around the world. Most people are not destroyed by failure. They are destroyed by delay. They wait for confidence before acting. They wait for certainty before deciding. They wait for perfect conditions before beginning. Year after year, opportunity knocks on their door and finds them still preparing, still waiting, still convincing themselves that tomorrow is guaranteed. Then one day they wake up and discover that the years disappeared faster than they ever imagined. The purpose of remembering death is not to create fear. It is to create clarity. It strips away distractions. It exposes what truly matters. It reminds you that your time is the most valuable thing you possess because it is the only thing you can never earn back. Money can return. Opportunities can return. Relationships can sometimes return. But a day that has been wasted is gone forever. No amount of regret can buy it back. Tomorrow morning, before the world begins demanding your attention, ask yourself a simple question. If this day were one of the last days I would ever experience, would I spend it the way I am about to? Do not answer quickly. Let the question sink deep enough to make you uncomfortable, because inside that discomfort is a compass pointing toward the life you were meant to live. The people who fear death the most are often the people who have not truly started living. The Stoics understood the opposite. When you make peace with the reality that life is temporary, you become dangerous. You stop delaying. You stop hiding. You stop waiting for permission. And for the first time, you begin treating today like the gift it has always been. Remember your mortality, not because death is coming, but because life is happening right now. Rule number 4, you separate what is yours from what never was. One of the fastest ways to destroy your peace is to spend your life trying to control things that were never yours to control in the first place. Most people wake up in the morning and immediately begin fighting battles they cannot win. They worry about what someone thinks of them. They replay conversations that happened yesterday. They fear events that have not happened yet. They stress over outcomes they cannot guarantee, and without realizing it, they hand their energy to things that do not belong to them. Epictetus understood this lesson better than almost anyone in history. Before he became one of the greatest Stoic teachers who ever lived, he was a slave. He did not control where he lived. He did not control what happened to him. He did not control the people who owned him. Yet, despite having less freedom than almost anyone around him, he discovered a truth that made him mentally stronger than emperors. He realized that there were still things nobody could take from him: his choices, his attitude, his judgments, his response, the inner territory that remained entirely his. Most people never discover this distinction. They spend years trying to control the weather instead of controlling their reaction to the storm. They try to control other people's opinions instead of controlling their own character. They try to control outcomes instead of controlling effort. And because they keep chasing power over things that were never theirs, they end up feeling powerless everywhere. Their peace rises and falls with circumstances. Their confidence rises and falls with approval. Their happiness rises and falls with events they cannot command. Imagine carrying 2 buckets everywhere you go. In one bucket are the things that belong to you: your effort, your discipline, your decisions, your actions. In the other bucket are things that never belonged to you: other people's opinions, the future, luck, the economy, circumstances. The problem is that most people try to carry both. Every day they drag around worries, fears, and expectations that were never theirs to hold. Then they wonder why life feels so heavy. The weight was never the problem. The problem was carrying things that did not belong to them. The Stoics believed that freedom begins the moment you stop demanding control over what cannot be controlled. This sounds simple. It is not. Because the human mind constantly tries to reach beyond its boundaries. It wants guarantees. It wants certainty. It wants reassurance about the future. But life does not offer those things. Life only offers influence, not control. You can prepare for an outcome. You can work toward an outcome. You can increase the chances of an outcome. But you can never own it completely. Think about how much suffering comes from resisting this reality. A person sends a message and spends hours worrying about the reply. A person works hard and becomes obsessed with the result. A person tries to help someone and becomes frustrated when they refuse to change. In every case, the suffering comes from the same mistake: confusing influence with ownership, confusing effort with control, confusing what is theirs with what never was. The strongest people in history learned to focus their energy like a laser. They did not waste it fighting reality. They did not waste it demanding certainty from an uncertain world. They poured every ounce of attention into the things that belonged to them: their actions, their choices, their character, their discipline. And because they mastered what was inside their control, they became remarkably calm about everything outside it. Tomorrow morning, before the day begins pulling at your attention, ask yourself a simple question: what is actually mine to control today? Then be ruthless with the answer. If it is not yours, release it. If it is yours, Own it completely. Because the moment you stop fighting for control over things that were never yours, you recover an incredible amount of power. Epictetus discovered this truth while living in chains. Most people spend their entire lives free and never learn it. The world becomes lighter when you stop carrying what does not belong to you, and the mind becomes stronger when it focuses only on the territory it truly commands. Control what is yours, release what never was, and watch how much peace returns to your life. Rule number 5. You rehearse the ambush before the enemy arrives. Most people do not fall apart because life is difficult. They fall apart because they expected life to be easy. They wake up expecting everything to go according to plan. They expect people to be reasonable. They expect circumstances to cooperate. They expect the day to unfold exactly the way they imagined it would. Then reality arrives. A plan fails. A person disappoints them. A problem appears without warning, and suddenly their peace collapses, not because the obstacle was powerful, but because they were completely unprepared for its arrival. Marcus Aurelius understood something that most people never learn. The problem is rarely the event itself. The problem is the shock, the surprise, the emotional reaction that comes from believing the day owed us something different. That is why he would remind himself before leaving his tent that he would encounter difficult people, selfish people, dishonest people, and ungrateful people. Not because he was negative, not because he hated humanity, but because he refused to allow reality to catch him off guard. The Stoics had a name for this practice, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. It was the art of mentally rehearsing challenges before they appeared. While most people prayed that nothing would go wrong, the Stoic prepared himself for the possibility that something might. And because he prepared, he remained calm when others panicked. He remained focused when others became emotional. He remained steady when others lost control. Imagine two generals preparing for battle. The first assumes everything will go perfectly. The second studies every possible weakness, every possible setback, every possible threat. When the unexpected finally happens, which one remains composed? Which one adapts faster? Which one is more difficult to defeat? The answer is obvious, yet every morning millions of people walk into the battlefield of life completely unprepared for the reality that challenges are coming. The irony is that avoiding thoughts about difficulty does not make difficulty disappear. It only makes you weaker when it arrives. The person who refuses to think about failure becomes devastated by failure. The person who refuses to think about rejection becomes shattered by rejection. The person who refuses to think about obstacles becomes overwhelmed by obstacles. What we avoid mentally often gains power over us emotionally. This is why the Stoics practiced mental rehearsal. They would ask themselves simple questions. What if the meeting goes badly? What if someone criticizes me? What if my plans change? What if things become harder than expected? Then they would visualize themselves responding with calmness, discipline, and strength. They were not predicting the future. They were training their character. They were teaching their minds that difficulty was not an emergency. Think about how much suffering comes from surprise. A single rude comment can ruin someone's entire day because they never expected it. A small inconvenience can trigger frustration because they assumed everything would go smoothly. A setback can destroy motivation because they believed progress would be effortless. The event itself is often small. The emotional reaction is what makes it large. And emotional reactions become weaker when the mind has already rehearsed them. Tomorrow morning, before the world begins testing you, spend a few moments imagining the challenges that might appear, the difficult conversation, the delayed plan, the unexpected obstacle, the moment when frustration tries to take control. Then picture yourself meeting those moments with composure instead of panic, strength instead of emotion, discipline instead of reaction. Because when the challenge finally arrives, it will no longer feel like an ambush. It will feel like something you have already faced before. The strongest people are not those who experience fewer problems. They are the ones who are least surprised by them. They understand that life contains obstacles, setbacks, disappointments, and uncertainty. They expect them. They prepare for them. And because they prepare for them, they are rarely controlled by them. Rehearse the storm before it arrives, because the obstacle that you have already faced in your mind loses much of its power when it finally appears in reality. Rule number 6, you zoom out until your problems shrink to their true size. One of the greatest weaknesses of the human mind is that it mistakes proximity for importance. Whatever is closest to us feels bigger than it really is. A criticism feels like a catastrophe. A setback feels like the end of the road. A bad day feels like a bad life. In the heat of the moment, the mind loses perspective. It magnifies temporary problems until they appear larger than reality itself. And many people spend years suffering not because their problems are enormous, but because their perspective has become small. Marcus Aurelius faced decisions that affected millions of lives. Wars, political conspiracies, economic crises, betrayals, death, responsibilities so heavy that most people would collapse under them. Yet when pressure became overwhelming, he practiced a powerful mental exercise known as the view from above. He would imagine himself rising above his own body, then above the city, then above the empire, higher and higher until he could see the entire world beneath him. From that height, the problems that once seemed enormous became tiny pieces of a much larger picture. Think about how different life looks from a mountain compared to standing in the middle of a crowded street. From the street, every obstacle feels immediate. Every noise demands attention. Every distraction feels important. But from the mountain, everything changes. The chaos becomes smaller. The urgency fades. The mind remembers that most of what seemed overwhelming was simply a matter of perspective. The world did not change. Only your position changed, and suddenly what felt impossible becomes manageable. Most people live trapped inside the smallest version of their perspective. They zoom in on every inconvenience. They replay every mistake. They obsess over every criticism. Their attention becomes so narrow that they can no longer see the bigger picture. One bad meeting ruins the day. One failure ruins the week. One disappointment ruins the month. They allow a single chapter to convince them the entire story is broken. The Stoics refused to make this mistake. Imagine looking at a massive painting from only 2 inches away. You would see confusion, random colors, strange shapes. Nothing would make sense, but the moment you step back, the image reveals itself. Patterns appear, meaning emerges. What once looked chaotic suddenly becomes clear. Life works the same way. Sometimes the problem is not that you need a better solution. Sometimes you simply need a wider view. The modern world profits from keeping people zoomed in. Every headline wants your attention. Every controversy wants your emotions. Every notification wants your reaction. People are constantly pulled into tiny battles that consume enormous amounts of mental energy. Yet when viewed from a larger perspective, most of those battles mean almost nothing. 5 years from now, most of the things that are stressing people today will not even be remembered. But because they never zoom out, they treat every momentary problem like a permanent disaster. The Stoics understood that perspective is a weapon. It allows you to separate what is truly important from what merely feels important. It reminds you that setbacks are temporary, that failures are teachers, that discomfort is part of growth, that difficult seasons eventually pass. When you zoom out, you stop seeing obstacles as walls and begin seeing them as small sections of a much longer journey. Tomorrow morning, before the world fills your mind with noise, take a moment to rise above your immediate circumstances. Look at your life from a wider perspective. Look at the years instead of the day. Look at the journey instead of the obstacle. Look at the person you are becoming instead of the challenge directly in front of you. You may discover that the thing causing you the most stress is far smaller than you believed. The strongest minds are not those that never encounter problems. They are the minds that refuse to let problems become larger than reality. They remain calm because they see the whole picture. They remain steady because they understand that today's struggle is only a small part of a much greater story. Zoom out, because when your perspective expands, your problems often shrink back to their true size. Rule number 7. You give 1 hour, the way a soldier gives loyalty. Most people do not have a lack of talent. They do not have a lack of opportunity. They do not even have a lack of intelligence. What they have is a lack of undivided attention. Their energy is scattered across dozens of directions. 1 minute they are checking messages. The next minute they are watching something unrelated. Then they remember another task. Then another distraction appears. By the end of the day they feel exhausted. Yet when they look back, almost nothing meaningful has moved forward. They were busy, but they were not focused. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, lost everything in a shipwreck. His possessions disappeared beneath the sea. His plans vanished. His old life ended. Most people would have seen that moment as a tragedy. Zeno saw it as a beginning. He arrived in Athens with almost nothing, yet he built a philosophy that would outlive kings, empires, and civilizations. He did not do it through endless multitasking. He did not do it by dividing his attention between 100 different priorities. He did it through sustained focus on what mattered most. The modern world is designed to destroy this ability. Every notification competes for your attention. Every platform wants a piece of your focus. Every distraction promises entertainment while quietly stealing your future. The average person is interrupted so many times during the day that deep concentration has become a rare skill. And because it is rare, it has become incredibly valuable. The ability to focus deeply is no longer normal. It is a competitive advantage. Imagine a magnifying glass beneath the sun. When the light is scattered, nothing happens. The energy is too weak, too divided, too unfocused. But when that same light is concentrated into a single point, it becomes powerful enough to start a fire. Your attention works exactly the same way. Scattered attention creates scattered results. Focused attention creates momentum, and momentum creates transformation. The difference between ordinary people and extraordinary people is often not effort. It is concentration. Look at the greatest builders, thinkers, leaders, and creators throughout history. They all shared one common trait. They protected their attention with ruthless discipline. While others allowed their focus to be pulled in every direction, they chose one important task and gave it their full loyalty. Not partial loyalty, not distracted loyalty, total loyalty. The kind of loyalty a soldier gives to a mission. The kind of loyalty that refuses to abandon its objective simply because something more entertaining appears. Most people never experience the power of deep work because they quit too early. They sit down to focus, then a notification appears. Their mind wanders. They become uncomfortable. They look for stimulation. Within minutes, they have abandoned the very task that could have changed their future. They mistake discomfort for a signal to stop. But the truth is that discomfort is often the doorway to concentration. The mind resists focus before it embraces it. Tomorrow morning, choose one task that genuinely matters. Not the easiest task, not the most urgent distraction, the task that would make the biggest difference if completed. Then give it one uninterrupted hour. No messages, no social media, no unnecessary interruptions. Just you and the work. Protect that hour as if your future depends on it, because in many ways it does. What most people fail to understand is that every hour of focused work is doing more than producing results. It is reshaping identity. Every time you sit down and concentrate despite distraction, you become a person who can command attention. Every time you stay with the task, despite discomfort, you strengthen mental discipline. Every time you refuse to be pulled away, you prove that your priorities are stronger than your impulses. The strongest minds are not necessarily the smartest minds. They are the minds that can remain present when everything else is demanding their attention. They understand that success is often hidden behind long periods of uninterrupted focus. They know that extraordinary results come from ordinary hours protected with extraordinary discipline. Give 1 hour the way a soldier gives loyalty, because a single hour of complete focus can accomplish more than an entire day of distraction. Rule number 8. You stop asking the crowd what you are worth. One of the most dangerous habits a person can develop is allowing other people to decide how they should feel about themselves. Most people would never hand a stranger the keys to their house, yet every day they hand strangers something far more valuable, their self-worth. A compliment makes them feel powerful. A criticism makes them feel broken. Approval lifts them up. Rejection tears them down. Without realizing it, they spend their lives on an emotional leash, being pulled in whatever direction the crowd decides. Epictetus warned about this nearly 2,000 years ago. He understood that the moment your peace depends on somebody else's opinion, your freedom disappears. Because other people's opinions are among the most unstable things in existence. They change constantly. The same people who praise you today may criticize you tomorrow. The same crowd that supports you during success may abandon you during failure. If your value depends on their approval, then your confidence will always be at the mercy of forces you cannot control. Look at how many people wake up each morning and immediately begin measuring themselves against others. They compare their appearance, their income, their achievements, their lifestyle, their progress. They scroll through carefully edited moments from other people's lives and quietly conclude that they are falling behind. What they do not realize is that comparison is a game nobody can win. There will always be someone richer, someone smarter, someone stronger, someone more successful. If your self-worth depends on being better than everyone else, you have attached your happiness to an endless race with no finish line. Imagine a king who wakes up every morning and asks random strangers whether he deserves to wear his crown. One person says yes, another says no. One praises him, another mocks him. By the end of the day, he is confused, anxious, and uncertain about who he is. It sounds ridiculous. Yet this is exactly how many people live. Their confidence rises and falls according to comments, opinions, likes, reactions, and judgments from people who have never lived a single day in their shoes. They have forgotten a simple truth. A person who constantly seeks validation from others eventually becomes a prisoner of it. The Stoics believed that your character is the only true measure of your worth. Not popularity, not status, not reputation. Character. Are you honest when nobody is watching? Are you disciplined when excuses appear? Are you courageous when fear arrives? Are you kind when bitterness would be easier? These are the questions that matter, because character remains yours even when approval disappears. Character remains yours when circumstances change, Character remains yours when the crowd turns against you. History repeatedly proves this lesson. Many of the greatest people who ever lived were misunderstood, criticized, rejected, and mocked during their own lifetime. Yet they continued moving forward because they refused to let public opinion determine private conviction. They understood that if you constantly look to the crowd for direction, you will eventually lose sight of yourself. The crowd changes its mind too often to be trusted with something as important as your identity. Tomorrow morning, before the world has a chance to tell you who you should be, decide for yourself. Decide what principles you stand for. Decide what kind of person you intend to become. Decide what values will guide your actions. Make that decision in private before a single opinion reaches your ears, because when your identity is built from the inside, the outside world loses much of its power over you. The strongest people are not those who receive the most praise. They are the ones who remain steady whether praise arrives or not. They do not become arrogant when admired. They do not become weak when criticized. They understand that applause is temporary, opinions are unstable, and public approval is unpredictable. But character endures. Stop asking the crowd what you are worth, because the day you stop needing their permission to value yourself is the day you become truly free. 8 rules, 8 choices, 8 opportunities to take back control of the one thing that determines everything else, your mind. But remember this, nothing changes because you watched this video. Nothing changes because you agreed with these ideas. Knowledge alone has never transformed anyone. The transformation begins the moment action replaces intention. Tomorrow morning, when that alarm cuts through the silence, you do not need to remember all 8 rules. You only need one. The rule that challenged you the most. The rule that exposed a weakness you can no longer ignore. The rule that made you uncomfortable while listening, because that is usually the rule capable of changing your life the most. Discipline is not built in a single morning. It is built one decision at a time, one promise at a time, one victory at a time. The strongest people are not the ones who never struggle. They are the ones who refuse to surrender when struggle arrives. They keep moving when comfort calls their name. They keep acting when excuses begin to speak. Years from now, nobody will see the mornings that built your strength. Nobody will see the battles you fought with distraction, comfort, hesitation, and self-doubt. They will only see the confidence, the focus, the discipline, and the results. But you will know where it all came from. You will remember the quiet mornings when you chose growth over comfort. So, choose your rule. Apply it tomorrow morning, then come back and choose another. Because extraordinary lives are not created by extraordinary moments. They are created by ordinary mornings, repeated with extraordinary discipline. And the first step toward becoming that person begins the moment you open your eyes.